नेपालीमै क्वेसन सोध्नु पर्ने जस्तो त नहोला नि हैन र
भएको खण्डमा हो सर
अनि
पनि हुन्छ र they would like to ask questions in Nepali or they will just ask in I think English is a preferred medium isn't that correct Raiji?
I think yeah most of the participants and panelists would speak in English, but in case somebody would like to speak or if they would want to get it understood in Nepali, then we have this translation facility.
Any about the presentation order. So is it the same that I got one schedule a few days ago? Is it still the same? That would be the fourth. So the easy mode guys would be the first, and then Mohan Rai, do you know?
Basant sir?
Yes, please. You did. Hazır. Nuzna.
Basanta, can you hear me okay? This is Nanki.
Nanki, we can hear you well.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. We are doing Nepali translation also, so.
Morning.
Okay, it's pretty good. If you, those are for Nepalese, but if you press the closed caption option, I understand that then you see the good. Pirmaji. So
Namaste. Sabai thik cha?
So there is a live translation in Nepali if you hit the closed caption on. I think we expect quite a few Nepalese participants as well. So.
Doesn't work with my headphones. Yeah, so.
Yeah. Okay. I was trying this morning with my background with a easy mode at the backdrop with those mountains, but somehow it was not successful. Good morning, Your Excellency, Mr. Proti Antiman, Finnish Ambassador.
Yes, can you hear me? Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Excellency. How are you?
They hear.
No.
Yes. How is everything?
Yeah, so far so good. Yes, so far not too bad. I think we are all managing under this quite difficult situation, but you're looking very well. So we must be keeping fit and safe. Yeah.
No, I think we all are suffering from this really terrible situation now. Luckily, the embassy staff members not infected this time. Hopefully it remains so. We keep on working from home more or less. I'm in the office today, but most of us are not in the office. So really hoping that that situation will improve as soon as possible.
Right. I think you should use the Finnish sauna more because the steam is supposed to help. I think we need a Finnish steam bath or sauna in every household here. Yeah. That should help.
Yeah, absolutely. It will disinfect your thoroughly, I would say, your body. You know, this is actually, we have a saying in Finnish that if sauna doesn't help, so it is serious. You know.
Yes. I think this is one of the green solutions. I think we should introduce now.
Now it's better to trust.
So I understand Anil ji also will join from National Disaster Risk Authority. Disaster Risk Reduction Authority. So I think I understand that we can go slightly overboard up to 12, 10, 15. Is that correct? Your Excellency? No, in terms of timing, since I am moderating, we also added Mr. Anil Pokhrel. So I presume that we can go up to 12:15. Is that correct? I was told by Germany. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Basantaji, right now Anil is in another meeting, so he will be joining us very soon. So put him as a last panelist so that we can hear other 4 panelists, and finally Anil can say something on that.
मलाई नि जसो म अर्को ल्यापटप चाहिन सक्छ के यो चीजको सरी बन्द गर्दिए कुन चाहिँ यो पढ्दा होइन होइन त्यसले झन् राम्रो
Google translation, Raisi.
Mohan sir. Mohan sir.
नमस्ते
Hi Anil, how are you? This is Nanki.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Hello everyone. Good morning.
Good morning, Anilji.
Good morning.
Hi Amarji.
Anilji.
Hi, good morning Arunji.
Good morning, Anilji. Very good to have you here.
Good morning everyone.
Yeah, I'm Basanta Shrestha here.
Hi Basant.
Hi Anil.
Hi Nanki.
Good to see you.
Yes. Likewise.
You're in the office, Anilji.
I'm in the office, right?
Mike, in a silent mode, we hear some noise at the backdrop.
It's good to hear some laughter in the background. So,
That's a good advice. So Mohanji, please alert us whenever we get started from our audiovisual point of view. I think this has been a good testing and we can hear everyone. And those of you who joined and they would like Nepali translation, I was told that you need to hit the closed caption button and show subtitle so that there will be a Nepali translation live in the, as we speak. Maybe this message, Raiji, you can also put on a chat box so that colleagues, those who join afterwards, they could also use that option. Shall we get started? It is 11 o'clock. Anything from the audiovisual side? Shall we get started? Your Excellency, Dr. Pema.
Well, with me it's okay. I think we need to check with Ambassador.
Yes, I am ready if you can hear me.
Okay, yes, we can hear you well. Ambassador Nuna, we can get started. Good. Okay, Your Excellencies, Director General of ICIMOD, dear fellow, and all the participants, those who joined us from Nepal. I understand some of the participants are from Europe and perhaps beyond. On behalf of EU Mission in Nepal, the Finnish Embassy, and the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development, ICIMOD, a very warm welcome to all of you and namaste. We have gathered here today online to celebrate and mark the EU Day 2021. And our heartiest congratulations to European Union friends on this very occasion. The spirit of EU Day is for unity and solidarity. Share ideas and help shape our better and a brighter future for everyone. In that spirit, dear friends, the topic of today's panel is climate change. As you know, one of the pressing environmental issues of our time and its implication on the mountains. Though the pandemic situation is peaking in Nepal, we are grateful to all of you that you could join us from the comfort of your home and hope that everyone is keeping safe and well. With this brief remark to highlight EU Day celebration and to give the welcome remarks, I now have the pleasure to invite His Excellency Ambassador of Finland to Nepal, Mr. Pertti Häntinen. Over to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you so much. Good morning and namaste to everybody. So, Excellencies, distinguished panelists, participants, ladies and gentlemen. To mark the Europe Day 2021, the EU delegation, Embassy of Finland and ICIMOD are organizing this panel discussion event on climate change, sustainability, and people in the mountains. It's my sincere privilege and pleasure to welcome you in this session today. Thank you all for being part of the Europe Day and the Europe Week 2021 here in Nepal. As we know, climate change and its impacts will greatly intensify the situation of undesirable presence of poverty and inequalities of opportunities in the Hindu Kush Himalayan mountain region. Millions of mountain people are estimated to be at risk from the impacts of climate change. Impacts are diverse with different intensity and scale. These include reductions in agricultural production, food insecurity, stressed water resources, loss of forests and biodiversity, as well as damaged infrastructure. The impacts can be magnified in days to come. Hence, responses to climate change impacts require multidimensional and multi-stakeholder approaches, which must pursue adaptive and mitigative solutions at local, regional, and national scales. European Union takes climate change very seriously. We are fighting climate change through ambitious policies at home and with international partners such as Nepal. We have put forward a plan to further cut emissions by at least 55% by 2030. And my country, Finland's aim is to become carbon neutral by 2035. Here in Nepal, EU and its member states work with government of Nepal and communities to enhance well-being of people by building their resilience and adaptive capacity, as well as supporting Nepal's green, resilient and inclusive recovery from the devastating corona pandemic. A few examples. Together with European Union, Finland supports €60 million rural village water resource management project in Surupachim and Karnali provinces. Furthermore, recently the Green Resilient Agricultural Productive Ecosystems GRAPE project was signed together with Germany, EU and Finland. And finally, Sustainable Wash for All SUSVA project for Karnali province is just signed between Nepal and Finland. In all those interventions, overall plan is to develop, support and strengthen socioeconomic and biophysical systems of which people's livelihoods are based sufficiently resilient and flexible to absorb the impact of climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, the diversity in mountain climate is matched by the diversity of its altitudinal variation, multiple and localized ecosystems, cultures and livelihoods. And climate change impacts makes mountains more vulnerable and our work challenging. Hence, for us, a burning question is how can we balance today's pressing needs with long-term climate risks? I hope today's discussion will be fruitful to understand the situation better. With these few words, I once again welcome all panelists and online participants, and let me reiterate my sincere hope that this discussion will result in bringing constructive understanding and views and will establish a better understanding of climate change in the HKH region. Thank you so much. Dhanyabad.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your warm note of welcome and also highlighting the impacts of climate change and also number of different programs supported by Finland and EU in Nepal and around the region. With this, may I have the pleasure to invite Dr. Pema Gyamsho, Director General of ICIMOD, for the keynote address.
Namaste. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all. Excellencies, distinguished panelists, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. I am very delighted to participate in this virtual event, Climate Change, Sustainability and People in the Mountains, organized by the EU delegation, the Embassy of Finland in Nepal, and ICIMOD to mark the EU Day 2021. We have been expecting that the pandemic situation would improve by now and that we would be able to have an in-person gathering to celebrate this important event. However, as you all know, this was not to be the case, as we are again experiencing unprecedented levels of infection from this deadly disease. As we all know and acknowledge, the Hindu Kush region is one of the most vulnerable regions to climate change impacts, manifest in rapid melting of glaciers, increasing frequency of floods and other disasters, loss of biodiversity and degradation of ecosystems, and ultimately leading to loss of lives and livelihood. Yet it has not received the kind of attention that it needs to be put in place for mitigation and adaptation measures vital to protect this global asset. This region, which is often referred to as the third pole or the water towers of Asia, is home to the world's highest peaks, unique cultures, diverse flora and fauna, and a vast reserve of natural resources. The Hindu Kush Himalayas directly supports the livelihood of over 240 million people living in the hills and mountains and provides many benefits to an estimated 1.65 billion people living downstream. As many as 10 major rivers of Asia, including the Indus, Ganges, and Brahmaputra, originate from the Hindu Kush Himalayan region and provide sustenance to well over a third of humanity. The European Union has always been at the forefront of global efforts, as we just heard Ambassador Prati Antonin speaking, and it was always in the front line to combat climate change and has consistently provided leadership to the rest of the world. And this is being done through ambitious policies and programs at home and actively supporting and working with other regions and countries to take similar actions. In this regard, we welcome, as also announced by the ambassador just now, the EU's pledge to further cut emissions by at least 55% by the year 2030. We are also very much encouraged by the ambassador's announcement that Finland intends to go carbon neutral by the year 2035. We all know that the EU is also a top provider of international climate finance to support developing countries like Nepal in their efforts to tackle climate change. At ICIMOD, we take pride in being an active partner of EU in the fight against climate change and has benefited from its generous support. We have successfully implemented a major project on adaptation to climate change called Himalika, support to rural livelihoods and climate change adaptation in the Himalayas with partners in Bangladesh, Bhutan, Myanmar, Nepal, and Pakistan. This project has helped pilot climate-smart technologies that supported poor mountain communities to adapt to climate change impacts on their livelihoods. The project was rated highly successful by an independent third-party evaluator in generating evidence-based knowledge from action research and demonstration of climate-resilient solutions to manage soil fertility, water stress, pest and diseases, and using information technology to link farms and markets. We hope that the learnings from Himalika could be upscaled through new and ongoing projects of EU and its member countries, like the one just mentioned by the ambassador, that is the Green Resilient Agriculture Production Ecosystem in Western Nepal and other projects supported by the EU, Finland, and Germany. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, ICIMOD has carried out a comprehensive assessment of the impact of climate change on cryosphere, hydrosphere, ecosystems, and livelihood of people in the HKH region. The assessment has concluded that we know enough to take actions now and call for 6 urgent actions to be taken, including the call for concerted action to limit temperature increases to below 1.5 degrees Celsius. The report clearly highlighted that even a 1.5 degrees centigrade world will be too hot for the Hindu Kush Himalayan mountains, as it would result in the disappearance of over one-third of the glaciers that feed the rivers and provide sustenance to well over one-third of the global population. ICIMOD's 8 member countries have acknowledged the urgency to come together to address the looming climate crisis and signed a ministerial declaration in October 2020 to take forward the 6 urgent actions, which also includes the need for strengthened regional and international cooperation. We hope that the EU and its member countries would take this into cognizance and enhance its engagement and support to the region to save this global asset. In this regard, we are very much encouraged that the development partners in Nepal have come together and adopted a holistic approach under the banner of climate smart development to pursue nature-based solutions to mitigate and adapt to climate change. However, nature-based solutions must be accompanied by transformative shifts, particularly in the energy sector from fossil fuel to renewables, in order to meet the Paris Agreement targets. Therefore, support must include investment in green infrastructures in the transport and manufacturing sectors, as well as in the digital information sector. In the short term, attention also needs to be given to the containing and recovering from the COVID-19 pandemic. I hope that today's webinar will set the scene for a more robust partnership between the government of Nepal, the EU, the Embassy of Finland, and other development partners in engaging meaningfully and collectively to address the challenges of climate change and to build resilient mountain communities. We have a very interesting lineup of panelists who will no doubt be able to set the scene for a lively discussion in the next hour or so. Thank you, and I wish you all a very successful EU Day and EU Week 2021. Namaste. Thank you very much. Vasantji, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Pema. Those of you who joined just now, if you need Nepali translation, if you can hit the closed caption option, then you can see the subtitle in a Nepali live translation. And thank you, Dr. Pema Gyamsho, highlighting SKS as a hotspot and a cooperation between EU and ECMOD in the area of climate change adaptation and also potential upscaling opportunities. At the same time, highlighting the need for regional cooperation in the Hindu-Kush-Himalayan region. As you all know, climate change is as real as the pandemic today, and perhaps more so in a longer-term perspective, as the climate change impact is rising to a crisis level, and the mountainous country like Nepal is one of the most vulnerable in the world. So I think today's discussion is very, very pertinent in terms of carrying forward some of the key messages in terms of impacts of climate change in the mountains. Mountains are expressions or manifestations of internal change of our Mother Earth. The Hindu-Kush Himalaya range, the youngest and the highest mountain chain of the world, ranging from Afghanistan in the west to Myanmar in the east, acts like a life support system in terms of food, energy, water, carbon storage, cultural and indigenous knowledge, not to mention the immense biological diversity it possesses. As Dr. Pema pointed out, even 1.5 degree world is too hot for the mountains, and it will exacerbate the impacts of climate change that we are already witnessing rampantly in the form of rapid melting of glaciers and erratic rainfall patterns, loss of agricultural productivity and biodiversity, not to mention increasing frequency, severity, and magnitude of natural disasters, as Dr. Pema highlighted. Also, increasing level of transboundary air pollution and black carbon concentration, which leads to a rapid melting of glaciers. And overall, I think we are also witnessing a kind of a migration due to climate change and the feminization of the mountains that we are witnessing across the Hindu-Kush Himalayan region. With this brief backdrop, let me begin today's panel session to discuss the broader issues of climate change, sustainability, and people of the mountains. We have a pool of distinguished and interesting experts in the panel discussion today. I also would like to encourage participants to use the chat box so that we can have good interaction. And I understand that, also those of you who would like to, put in a Nepali, that's also facility is there from the organizer, as I understand. Since the time is an essence, I request panelists to remain with the designated timing. With this, let me now turn to Dr. Arun Shrestha from ECMOD. In the interest of time, I would request, please introduce yourself briefly, and over to you for your intervention, Dr. Arun Shrestha.
Thank you, Basantaji. Your Excellencies, DG ECMOD, and dear participants, it's definitely a great pleasure for me to be here and be able to present I'm Arun Shrestha, and I'm a regional program manager at Isimode, managing regional program on triosphere and atmosphere. I'll be talking about, let me first share my screen. Right, my screen should be visible to you now. Basantji, could you confirm?
Yes, Arunji.
Yeah, thank you so much. So what I'm going to talk about is about climate change impacts on future water availability and disaster risks. And of course, it's in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. I'll be talking about Hindu Kush Himalayan region, but time to time, I will zoom into Nepal and also show some examples from Nepal. A lot of this has been already, mentioned by our DG, Dr. Pema. So maybe there will be some repetition, but of course, I will present some, evidences, figures, and some also graphics to kind of support the arguments. So going forward, I just wanted to start with, showing the region where we live, of course, and also where we work, the region called the Hindu Kush Himalaya region. And there are many different things that makes this region unique. And I have put a few here. This is the largest mass of snow and ice after the two poles, the North and South poles. And that's why it's also often called the third pole. And because of that, it's a source of 10 major river basins. This is a monsoon-dominated climate. The arrows shows the atmospheric circulation. Summer monsoon and westerly, and those circulation systems are source to moisture, rainfall, and snowfall in this region, which nourish the vast amount of glaciers and snowfields, which in turn nourish the 10 river basins, right? So this is our region. Now, talking about climate, the climate context in this region, and it is also from the Hindu Kush Himalayan assessment, which Dr. Pema mentioned. We have experienced rapid, which means about 0.2 degree per decade warming in this region, which is comparable, or in cases higher than the global average warming. And precipitation extremes are increasing in this region. That's in the past, but if we look at the future, and future seems even more serious, with extremes likely to increase, the temperatures likely to increase from 2.2, 3.3 degrees for more moderate emission scenarios to as high as 4.2 to 6.5 degrees in the extreme scenarios by the end of the century. And the rainfall likely to increase by 25% by the end of the century. Now, as DG has already put, 1.5 degree average warming in the world means still very hot for the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. Somebody has a microphone on, so if you could put your microphone off, that would be really nice. It's a little bit distracting. So what it means, 1.5 degree, even if we manage to hold the warming to 1.5 degree, we'll still lose 1/3 of our glaciers. And if it goes by current emission scenario, we could lose 2/3 of the glacier volume. So that could be quite serious. Now, moving on, looking at Nepal, I think Nepal is no different. Even in some cases, the warming in Nepal is quite high, 0.06 degrees per year. And we have also experienced elevation-dependent warming, which means the higher altitude is warming more than the lower altitude. And rising precipitation extremes are also observed in Nepal. Looking into the future, the climate models tells that in the future, towards the 2060s, we could have around 8 to 12% increase in precipitation, mostly in the western region. And if we go to end of the century, it could be higher. And then if we talk about temperature, again, quite significant warming is also projected. So Nepal is also going to be, affected in the same way. Now, what it means in terms of changes in glacier. What I'm showing here is the north side of Everest, the Rombuk Glacier. And this photograph is from 1921, taken by George Mallory, which for some time, some people think is the first person to scale Everest, but that's not the topic. But just wanted you to look at the glacier in the forefront. In 2021, it was like this, and the picture taken in 2007 is just scrolling up here, taken by David Brecious, already 14 years, but you can see quite a dramatic change in the glacier. Now, if we look at how much it has melted down like 100 meters in those years. And those 100 meters, just for an example, I have put the old Dharara. We have now new Dharara. This is old Dharara, which was only 68 meters. So that is the kind of scale of glacier melting you can see. And this is quite a common phenomena in the Himalayan region. Now, what does it mean in terms of water? Will we have acute water shortage in the future because of glacier melting and climate change? So for that, we looked at, what are the sources of water in those river basins? And these maps actually is a little bit strange, but it shows Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Myanmar, etc. These are the upper parts of our basin. The first one shows glacier melt, second one shows snow melt contribution, and third one is rain runoff contribution. The summary is that Indus is the one which is mostly, glacier melt dependent. Brahmaputra is mixed, snow and rainfall. Ganges is largely rain dependent river basin. So looking at this, due to climate change, we see the possibility that into the future, water availability will be a challenge in Indus, definitely. But then if we look at other river basin, in the headwaters, close to the glaciers, close to the mountains, it could be very important issue. It could be a very big challenge. For example, this is Pasu Glacier in Pakistan, picture taken in 2009 and 2014. The arrow shows a canal which is drawing water for irrigation directly from the glacier. And then you can see water in the left picture, but you cannot see water in the right because of glacier recession. This is what has happened. This is an example. In Nepal, for example, also if you go to Dolpo, Upper Mustang, this is kind of similar case because it is quite arid over there. The other kind of impacts are floods. And we know there are many different kinds of floods common in Hindu Kush Himalayan region. The left one is an example of glacial lake outburst flood from a very small lake in Tibet, which actually totally devastated the upper Botekoshi hydropower. And the other example is from 2010 Indus flood. So these are quite common phenomena in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. But what we see from our analysis is that these are going to be even more common in the future. The floods are going to be bigger and more frequent in the future. So this kind of impacts are very likely to happen. So in conclusion, I would like to say that failing to limit global warming will impact the cryosphere of Hindu Kush Himalaya region, leading to colossal challenges in water resources and disaster management in the region. So for that, urgent need to take climate action. I think we cannot delay that. Investing in adaptation and resilience building is quite important. And of course, risk information, understanding of the risk of the changes is very important. But then because many of these impacts happen in transboundary scale, regional cooperation would be very important for us to tackle all those challenges. With that, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving this very interesting presentation, Arunji. And also highlighting, as a water tower of Asia and impact of climate change, especially on and impending disaster risks. Perhaps what I suggest is in terms of questions and interaction, maybe we can come at the end, towards the end. I would highly encourage participants to use the chat box as well due to limited timing. With this, I think, let me turn now to, I understand that Anilji will come at the last in the panel. Now to talk about green and resilient and inclusive development in the SKS region. And as we speak, climate change, pandemic is hitting hard. Green recovery is, I think, is a must talk about kind of a topic, and also green and inclusive kind of a development pathway. I now like to invite Nanki Kaur from ICIMOD. Perhaps you might want to introduce briefly and make your intervention, Nanki, here.
Thank you, Basanta, and good morning to everybody. My name is Nanki Kaur, and I head up the Adaptation and Resilience Building Program at ICIMOD, and it's a privilege to be part of the EU Day celebrations. Congratulations to everybody who is celebrating Europe Day. As Basanta said, I'm going to focus on green, resilient, and inclusive development in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region. Please give me a minute to upload my presentation. I think you should all be able to see this now. Is that visible?
Yes, it is.
Basanta, could you confirm it's visible?
Yes, Nanki, it is visible, very much visible. Please go on.
All right, thank you. So, as today we are talking about a really important topic, in fact, I think one of the most defining topics of our generation, climate change, and what ambitious climate action would look like in Nepal and across the mountain region in the Hindu Kush Himalaya. I'm focusing on green, resilient, and inclusive development. And over the next couple of minutes, I'm going to sort of just focus on 2 points. The first one on the need for climate action, which my colleague has already touched on, and then a bit on what are the opportunities that we have for green, resilient, and inclusive development as we move forward. So starting with the first, in terms of the need for climate action in the Hindu Kush Himalaya, I think my colleagues have already made a very good case of the climate emergency that's unfolding across our region. As Arun said, a 1.5 degree world is too hot for the mountains. And if we look at the national commitments to date in terms of what all countries are doing to address global warming, if we put those together as per the climate tracker, we are still headed towards a 2.4 degree world. And this, as Arun has made a case very well in the previous presentation, is going to result in an increasing number of climate-induced disasters across our region, which have significant impacts on our ecosystems or the lives of people who live in the mountains and downstream, including the livelihoods. So it is a climate emergency that we are in and that we are heading into. And when we come to looking at how we are addressing this climate emergency, this is a slide that's just focusing on what we are doing around adaptation, which is an important agenda for people living in the mountains. So on the left, you see a graph that's been put together by UNEP, the Adaptation Gap Report. And this just looks at the types of policy responses that countries are coming up with. And if you look at our region, all of it is in dark green, which means that we do have a good set of policy responses when we are talking about addressing climate change. And if you focus on Nepal, I think a number of us have had the privilege to work with the government, including the European Union, to develop some of these policies, like the Local Adaptation Program for Action, one of the first countries to actually invest in local adaptation. So we have a good set of policies, but in terms of how effective these are in implementation, there is still a huge gap when it comes to how well policies and plans for adaptation are effective in coordinating across sectors or across scale. And we still have issues in trying to understand how effective a lot of our adaptation interventions are. So there are still gaps when it comes to adapting to climate change and our understanding on how to respond. And if you look on the right side, this is by the Climate Policy Initiative. And this is just looking at the status of finance that's coming towards climate action. So if you look at some of the figures we've got from the IPCC, that it will take almost $4 trillion annually to reach a 1.5 degree world. And if you look at this graph, which I'm sorry is quite small, but in the year 2017, we had an annual sort of flow of finance of $574 billion globally. Only 5% is what goes to adaptation. So again, there is a very big gap when it comes to the total amount of finance available, and also out of that finance, how much is flowing towards adaptation is minimal. So this is just to set the scene that there is a need for ambitious climate action, whether that's to address the climate emergency, to improve our planning, or to scale up finance in this area. My second point is more around the opportunities that we have for green, resilient, and inclusive development in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region. And out here, the first one is I want to quickly show the sort of emerging climate action landscape across our region. So we first have the Paris Agreement. As we all know, this is COP26. It's important because this is the year that all the countries will put forward their actions on how they're going to deliver on the Paris goals, whether that's adaptation, mitigation, or finance. And along with that, we also have the post-pandemic recovery debate, which is now gaining traction. And in fact, again, the European Union and Nepal is one of the supporters of Nepal's green recovery efforts. Well, the objective of that is to make sure that as we move from response to recovery phase, all investments are also aligned to climate action. So these are the two big narratives that I think are shaping this decade. And as part of these narratives, if you look, they do, I think, provide opportunities to bring together mitigation, adaptation, or green recovery, and the climate finance debate. So what we've put around here are just an example of some of the sectors that the 8 countries in the Hindu Kush Himalaya are prioritizing when they come to their climate actions or their post-pandemic recovery packages. There's quite a big focus on energy, specifically renewable energy, a big focus on nature, a lot of that in the forestry sector, quite a big focus on the financial architecture, on the MSME sector, and on agriculture. And if you see around these circles, those are some of the actions that our countries are prioritizing as they put forward their investment packages. So if this is the context, in terms of taking this forward, in terms of opportunities, the first one is what our Director General referred to, that in terms of the political will from our region, it's very strong. We have individual countries that have committed to a green and resilient or inclusive recovery, but also as a whole, the 8 countries in our region did come together to sign a ministerial declaration in support of a HKH call to action, which prioritizes 6 urgent actions. There's one specific to climate change, but as you can see, the others are also very, very relevant. It's very strong. Ambitious climate action. So the last slide that I have is that what we are doing in ICIMOD is working with partners, and we are working on a HKH to Glasgow campaign. And mainly the purpose of that campaign is very much around these 3 messages: to promote a green, resilient, and inclusive recovery and development in the Hindu Kush Himalaya. We want the world to recognize our region as the pulse of the planet, which supports almost half the world's population, but also as a climate hotspot. We are very keen to strengthen regional cooperation to deliver climate action at scale and with speed. And lastly, whilst our countries go forward as countries, we also want to ensure that each country is also prioritizing and investing in mountain-specific climate priorities. And if you see this graph, these are some of the areas that have been highlighted as common across our countries and also as important in terms of addressing climate change and building resilience as we move forward. So Basanta, I will end here. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Nanki, and highlighting climate change impact, the need for investment, and also in financial flow, the narratives of the green recovery in the context of pandemic, I think, and also some of the big picture in terms of climate emergency, as well as roadmap to Glasgow in COP26. I think there are exciting opportunities in front of us, not only in the context of Nepal, but rallying the mountainous country from the Hindu Kush Himalayan region and to have a united voice in the COP26. This is a good opportunity. Thank you for highlighting that. With this, let me now turn to Dr. Juho Haapala, who will be briefing us more towards the climate action, climate change adaptation and the mitigation, especially I understand from the EU-Finland project in the western part of Nepal. Over to you, Dr. Juho. Maybe you might want to briefly introduce yourself, and over to you for your intervention.
Thank you, Basanta. Ji, Your Excellencies, panelists, and ladies and gentlemen, namaste and happy Europe Day, or should I say Europe Week. My name is Juho, and I'm the Rural Monitoring and Reporting Specialist at RWRMP. I will start sharing my screen now. So if you wait for
a little bit, if you can, a little bit louder. I don't know whether it is audio or you need to.
Sure. I'll come closer to the mic. Is it now better?
That's better, Joe.
Okay. So I represent Rural Village Water Resources Management Project, or RVWRMP, and it is a project funded by the government of Nepal together with the European Union and government of Finland. And my intention is to bring the discussion to more towards the local level, and as well as provide practical examples of the climate change adaptation and resilience building at local level in Nepal. So RVWRMP is a water use and management project, and we work with rural municipalities, communities, and household levels. And we focus on wash and livelihoods, local water governance, and climate change. And we work in climate scarce areas of Nepal in Sur, Paschim, and Karnali province. This is not a small-scale project, but we provide services to around 100,000 beneficiaries annually in both wash and livelihood separately. And we have long experience, around 15 years, continuous experience in the far west and western Nepal. And this is also based on even longer cooperation with among Finland and Nepal in wash since 1989. And we have an integrated approach to water resources management. We try to manage wash and livelihoods and other water users together. And one of the cross-cutting themes of the project is climate change adaptation and disaster risk management. And I understand that in my experience with RVWRP is mainly related to adaptation and building resilience at local level, though some of our activities are actually also mitigating climate change, including micro hydropower, improved cooking stoves and water mills that do reduce CO2 emissions and also save forests. But mostly our work is related to climate change adaptation and building resilience at local level. So here's just some photos, typical photos of our working area. So the principle of the project is that we prioritize the remotest areas and the poorest communities with that have faced most hardship. And this translates often to difficult access, scattered settlements, and water scarce areas. Just to give you a picture of how we work and implement. So then coming to the point and that Arun Shrestha nicely already put, except that water resources are getting scarcer in the Himalayan mid hills already today and not in the future. The climate change has an effect on local hydrology in the western Nepal, both causing extreme water events like droughts and floods, but more severe impact is that climate is gradually getting hotter and drier. And this has impacts on the water resources and services in western Nepal, according to our observations. Source depletion is becoming a big problem. Our sister project in Pokhrel region conducted a study comparing water sources in 2004 to 2014. And they found out that in at least in Tanahun region, the sources were depleting already at that time. And we are also facing that same problem continuously, almost daily in our project area. So it means that there's less water available for various uses, while the demand is growing as the people are, also the economy in West Nepal is growing. So we need more advanced and more expensive water infrastructure, meaning lift schemes, solar schemes, and longer transmission of water. It is not exceptional that we have 15 kilometers transmission line to serve the service area from the nearest water source. So this is already happening today, and we are getting problems. So I want to share 2 lessons learned. The first is to integrate the infrastructure or hardware with software or capacity building and behavior change activities. We often think that these are somehow separate, but I want to emphasize that doing climate smart designs, quality construction can also enable sustainability and efficiency in water use behavior. And there are some principles like giving priority to drinking water for all over other water uses. I refer to UN right to water and sanitation, but the Water Resource Act as such in Nepal that set that kind of priority. And this planning should take the natural hazards, risks, and water scarcity into account. And how we can do that is through multiple water systems. So whenever we have private tap systems at household, we can use wastewater for home gardening, for instance. We can use overflow excess water for irrigation, watering. And what we have found out recently is that once we started making private taps instead of community taps with water metering, it makes water use more careful, which is important in water scarce areas. And also the other thing with private water taps, that it makes water use more private, which means that also the gendered habits and taboos in the area are decreasing, because the traditions come to the family and it's easier to get rid of the traditions at the family level. And then we integrate livelihoods with WASH to gain income, to give farmers incentive to maintain the water system. Once they to maintain water systems, also very important. And the second lesson, I will have this short.
Half a minute, yeah.
Okay, yes. So I want to emphasize the cooperation since 2017 with the municipalities. We have a shared budget, strong presence at the municipality level, and we have really encouraging results. Good municipal contribution and ownership in the project. And the rest of the points are mainly giving examples of our work related to institutional resilience toward climate change. And the trick is that the municipalities must see the value added of technical assistance and close cooperation. So the quality, transparency, sustainability, once they get the value added, they are very willing to cooperate. And let me conclude with takeaway messages. So the fact is that fresh water is getting scarcer. There's no silver bullet, but there are some points, urgent actions, as was referred to in the previous presentation, regarding institutional strengthening, where local municipalities are the key in Nepal, according to our observations and experience. We should also combine hardware and software components to trigger sustainable water use behavior, and not forget about the social sustainability with equity and rights, giving priority to drinking water for all at all times. So thank you for listening. I think I'm crossed my time.
Thank you, Juho. I think bringing very much the local level actions and local level kind of action, and I understand in a very needed reason in the Western Nepal, and also the continuing kind of a program. Thank you. Perhaps participants, I would also like to see maybe if there are questions or queries or your intervention, please use the chat box. So perhaps then we move to another speaker, Dr. Surendra Joshi here, who was a coordinator of the EU Himalika program. Again, very local level adaptation kind of a practices, not only in Nepal, but in the case member countries. So without further ado, I would like to give a floor to Dr. Surendra Joshi. Maybe you give brief introduction of yourself, and over to you for your intervention.
Thank you, Basanji, Your Excellencies, distinguished participants, distinguished panelists. Good morning to all of you and happy EU Day. It is a great privilege for me to share the learnings of the EU-funded Himalika on climate change adaptation. It is again about the local actions that Himalika supported. And I used to be the coordinator of Himalika program, and now I work as a senior resilient livelihood specialist. Hope my slides are visible, Basanji.
Yes, very much so, very much so.
Yeah, so Himalika stands for Support to Rural Livelihoods and Climate Change Adaptation in the Himalayas. As we heard from the previous speakers, climate change and climate change induced disasters pose big risk to life and livelihoods. So what could be the simple actions that communities can take to reduce some of these risks? That is the main purpose of Himalika. And ICIMOD implemented this program from December 2012 to March 2018 with the contribution of EU, the 10 million euro. And the objective was to support the development of rural livelihoods in the context of socio-economic and climate change and the conservation of ecosystem services. Himalika had 5 interconnected and complementary components, and the key action was to identify, test, and demonstrate best practices and promote cross-country learning and broad-scale uptake. So if you see the intervention landscapes, they implemented together with partners in 5 countries. The green box shows the pilot project sites, and the orange color shows the action research sites. So we try to understand the vulnerability at local level and the multidimensional poverty, the comparative advantages, and the mountain niche products and the services that could help improve their income. So one of the key learnings of Himalika is some of the simple solutions can address the complex challenge at local level. As we heard, climate change is a complex challenge, but there are some simple solutions. And in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region, there are a range of green nature-based climate change adaptive practices, but these are in scattered form. Our need is to contextualize, package, and demonstrate them. And the use of local traditional knowledge backed by science and innovation is key for solutions to be successful. And what we realized, what we understood is that uptake of solutions is high if these are simple, affordable, and making sense for local communities. And when we say solutions, we have a menu of big options. And these are some of the solutions like systematic and scientific management of cow sheds, collection of cow urine, and preparation of plant population as a liquid fertilizer and the biopesticides, like integration of beekeeping, the plantation of fodder, hedgerows as a part of integrated natural resource management. Some of the water smart practices that the earlier speaker also mentioned. And then some RE solutions like, the electric device to shake the fruits, and then this umbrella-like structure. And this particular simple technology in Pakistan helped communities to get 40% more berries from the Sibak Thar. And similarly, the weather and crop advisory through SMS. The second learning of Himalika is more income means more option to climate change adaptation. And with large cardamom, we tried together with the Department of Agriculture and the Cardamom Development Center to package all good practices to support production and also help to add value and expand domestic market with a range of value-added products together with this SABA, social enterprise. And then using the traditional skills of weaving maize, they could also use cardamom fiber to make all these value-added products. And what is also interesting is this, integration of kiwi fruits, legumes, vegetables, honeybees in cardamom farm. It complements with the productivity of cardamom, and at the same time, it helps split the risks. If something goes wrong with cardamom, they could still have some income from honeybees, from legumes, from cardamom fibers. So this is the one options that we could demonstrate through Himalika in Taplejung. And second one is, it is possible to bring private sector investment closer to producers' pocket and also to create win-win businesses. We have a number of examples from all the pilot sites, and I show you one example from Myanmar. In the southern Shan state, the communities, they used to apply bamboo in their household consumption with the partitioning wall, bamboo baskets for variety of household purpose. But there was no use of bamboo for the high-end markets. So together with the market outlet owners, we facilitated the transfer of skills or the redirecting skills for the products that are demanded in the markets. And the entrepreneurs, they came together, they created a Facebook page, and they could get market demand from Yangon, even from Thailand. So if they come together, then they can, offer the scale. And then if market goes high, there can be a chances of over-exploitation of the resources. So at the same time, together with the Department of Forest, we try to promote the plantations and the sustainable harvesting with water and soil conservation technologies. And another learning from Himalika is that, you can have a good result, but to ensure the long-lasting impact, we also need to see who is benefiting out of it. Is women, the vulnerable communities, or the poor are participating in it, and what is the critical issue there? If you see this example in Myanmar, the critical issue for the villagers is water, like the previous speaker mentioned in the Western Nepal's context. The women, they used to spend 2-3 hours in a day simply to fetch water. So with all this integrated water resource management technologies, the rooftop rainwater harvesting, the expansion of the natural ponds, and all those things, the Himalika managed to benefit 800 women in the particular clusters. And with clean water for 2 more months and the saving of 1.5 to 2 hours of time on a daily basis, which time they could use for their family. Similarly, another example from Udaipur, the Rauta village in Nepal. In the hilltop, the communities, they were abandoning lands because they could realize that, with millets and maize, which is rain-fed and dry, they could not make, good progress. So they abandoned the land. But with this, the water lifting with the solar panels, the surface water from 200 meters down, and then the collection of rainwater and the soil cement tanks, they could, convert this dry, abandoned land as a vegetable farm. And the number of youth in Rauta village, they said that, they will now see the opportunities to generate income with vegetable farms, and they will opt not to go back to Malaysia again for little earnings. So these are some of the examples how, it helps bring or retain youth in the villages with all this entrepreneurship and others. And one very interesting example is, how it is important to have this integration of natural resource management and the livelihoods, how we can create the co-benefits for nature and the people. This is one excellent research we conducted in Pakistan on apple orchards. Simply by migrating honeybees to the apple orchards, the apple orchard owner can get a very good yield, good quality, if you see the figures here. And at the same time, the beekeeper could earn the rental fee of the honeybees, as well as honey and other products that bees collect from the nectar of apple flowers. So there are a number of opportunities to create these win-win businesses, whether it is with the stall feeding, the grass and the fodder tree plantations, or the integration of beekeeping and the legumes. So these are, yeah.
Quickly, because we are running out of time.
Okay. Yeah. So we have co-created number of knowledge products based on this learning, and we are happy to note that we are receiving good demands and good application of these knowledge products. Thank you very much, Basanji.
Thank you, Surendra, for that exciting presentation and also the enthusiasm. And I think Himalika certainly was a flagship program in terms of climate change adaptation and different practices that we have been able to bring together in different member countries, and also mobilizing private sector and also scaling up opportunities provide a very, very good avenues as we move forward and talking about the local level climate action. Thank you for this intervention. I also see a number of chat and questions there, but time is a competing resources here. We are already here. We intend to conclude sometime in 12:15 or so, but we still have one more panelist, important panelist with us, Mr. Anil Pokhrel, CEO of National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Authority. Thank you very much for joining, Anilji. Maybe you are also hearing a number of deliberation in the by the different panelists, and since your portfolio on disaster risk reduction in Nepal and also from the perspective of climate change, maybe you might want to make some deliberation and also some of the key aspects from the Nepal government point of view. Over to you, Anilji.
Thank you, Basantaji. Am I audible? Am I visible?
Yes, you are very much visible as well as audible as well. So thanks to technology, it is working out pretty well.
Thank you so much. Let me first take this moment to congratulate every one of us for today's EU Day. Madam Excellency, Madam Ambassador, distinguished panelists, distinguished guests, and all participants who've been participating in this forum. I'd like to take a moment to really appreciate the effort done by EU and its partners for setting up today's webinar on climate change, sustainability, and people in the mountains. And also would like to thank for inviting me to be one of those panelists. Thank you so much. I'd take a moment to mainly walk you through what the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Authority is, and what exactly have we been doing, and what are the government of Nepal's priorities vis-a-vis disaster and climate change risk in Nepal. So a brief introduction on the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Authority. This institution did come out as through a National Disaster Reduction and Management Act in 2017, and the authority was set up as a part of it. Its governance structure is headed by our Right Honorable Prime Minister. All our ministers are member to it, including the chief of the opposition party, the provincial chief ministers, and other actors. So we've, say for instance, in the last 1 year alone, we have had 3 council meetings, which has made very pertinent decisions with respect to disaster risk and a lot of issues also on climate change. I'll walk you through some of those key decisions that we've been able to make it. And so this is a policy making body in that sense, that actually it involves all the ministries in Nepal. And as we know, again, and we've also been able to kind of learn from these presentations that climate change is an issue that intersects all sectors.
You might need to full screen your PowerPoint and also scroll down as you speak. It's on the first slides.
How do I do that now?
Slideshow, and you need to do is down, I guess. Yeah, it is coming out. Maybe full screen mode, so I think it's doing.
It just says duplicate. I'm not able to find that.
Okay, maybe some organizer could help in a chat box to Anilji. But in the interest of time, please continue.
I'll continue, right?
Yeah.
So this is the National Council is a policy making body, and then it directs key implementation tasks mainly to the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Authority, but also to other ministries and departments. At an executive level, we have what we call is a Karyakari Samiti headed by our Honorable Minister of Home Affairs that also includes other key ministries and secretaries from all ministries. So this is where we come out with policies again and annual work programs and plans. So the DRM Act, the reason that I'm bringing up here is its mandate does include the kind of discussions that we're having today vis-a-vis climate change, especially of reference are the GLOF, extreme rainfalls, low rainfall, floods, landslides, soil erosion, inundation, storms, droughts, cyclones. These are mostly, again, as you all know, again, events that are again triggered by mainly through water-related extreme events. And its mandate also includes conducting researches, including actions on actually lowering the risk and mitigating measures, particularly around climate change issues. So it's so difficult for us to really make a distinction between, again, what climate change is and what is not, especially in the context of the Nepal Himalayas. Our organizational structure is pretty small. Our very first organizational structure that was endorsed last year. But right now we're also working on, again, revisiting this to have more in-house resources for climate change experts, for risk analytics, for GIS, for remote sensing, and other set of activities that are more relevant to climate change issues. So what are the key risks that we're grappling with in Nepal, especially with respect to climate change? We've talked about it quite comprehensively earlier during the panel discussions. But again, from our perspective, it's mainly landslides, rockfall, avalanche-induced floods, debris flow, the GLOFs that we've discussed about, as Arunji mentioned earlier, the riverine floods, forest fires, and droughts. And these are, again, these impact the most vulnerable. The assets at risk are again, our settlements, our key infrastructures, and our lifelines. So if you really look at the scenarios for landslides alone, we've not been able to really study or understand them well. But what we know is through a study that's been done, a comprehensive study for the 14 earthquake hit districts, is there are more than 10,000 houses that are at risk from landslides alone. And this is the same areas, against at least some of those districts were the same, which were hit hard by the 2020 landslides. We've lost an unprecedented number of people last year, close to 400 people. On an average, we lose something around like 100 people just because of landslides. But this shows, again, how things are changing in the Nepal mountains. And it's also evident from this transit study that started, again, just prior to the 2015 earthquake, is that, again, it's not only the number of landslides that are, again, growing, the number, but also the sizes of the landslides are really kind of spreading very fast. And this is what the risks are growing in the mountains and the hills. The red lines in this slide does show the number of landslides, and the green lines show the total number of the total area of the landslide that's been growing, especially after the 2015. The dotted line shows where the 2015 earthquake happened, and so this is what we've been tracking, and this shows again how high at risk are we in terms of particularly from landslides in the Nepal Himalaya. This only is a picture of these 14 most earthquake affected districts. We're taking a similar approach to expand the study to undertake all 753 municipalities in Nepal that encompasses all 77 districts. Now, we've also seen again the nature of landslides are dramatically kind of changing. I mean, this is what we could perhaps attribute to climate change. What we experienced in Bhorpatan and Baglung in 2020, the size of the boulders is as big as like two size of two trucks combined together. The small picture on the right shows the kind of the size of boulders and the rocks that come along with the water, and shows us the ferocity of, again, what's happening in these rivers, in these streams, in places such as in Baglung. Similar kind of stories all across Nepal. These are just pictures from last year, 2020. In Acham, part of the whole hillside did come down together. This place was something around like 60 meters deep, and it's now fully kind of full with boulders, and you see a wave of boulders, and what happens is now, perhaps this year, this cross section is now, given that it's filled with boulders, the river is surely going to kind of expand to other adjoining floodplains that might again lead to subsequent flood in this region. So this is how risks are growing in such a fast pace in the Nepali mountains. And to address this, what we've done is, again, we've never been able to really design a structured program for reconstructing and recovering the livelihoods of these families that were damaged by earthquake, by landslides. So what we did was, earlier this year, is to, again, building on the experience of the 2015 earthquake reconstruction led by the National Reconstruction Authority, we've come up with a guideline for reconstructing private houses and infrastructures damaged by landslides and floods. This takes an approach where we enable the local governments, the municipal governments, in terms of identifying the households, and then subsidizing by a small pot of money of around like 500,000 Nepali rupees in the mountains, 400,000 in the hills, and 300,000 in the Tarai. These are owner-driven reconstruction. But what is of really great importance to this audience today is we've not been really able to really try the concepts of green recovery. We've actually kind of like, again, inherited the designs that we adopted following the 2015 earthquake. So what I want to mention to this audience today is we need to work together in terms of, again, looking at, again, how we could bring in the concepts of green recovery if it's tried within Nepal and also perhaps elsewhere. The concepts of, again, I was very happy to see the Himalika work that was done in Nepal and in the region. This is where, again, integrating these kind of concepts, the green recovery concepts and the livelihood concepts into the reconstruction of these families, these houses, and these settlements is such an important task. The challenge is huge. It's close to 3,000 houses needs to be reconstructed. But the more big challenge is, again, some of these settlements needs to be completely resettled to a safer and a newer location. Some of these mountain slopes are perhaps unfit from a risk perspective to continue settlement over there. And so this is where we're working on identifying alternative landslides, where so our initial study shows that close to 4,000 houses needs to be resettled just for these houses that were impacted by the 2020 floods. Another spell of floods and landslides are just in the offing, like it's just round the door. And so this is where the pace of construction needs to also be kind of like perhaps masked, and the risk needs to be reduced in a very fast-paced manner. This is where we need support and learnings and lessons from similar experiences elsewhere, particularly in terms of green recovery and combining it with sustainable livelihood mechanisms. So the scale of problem is not limited to 1 or 2 districts within Simlipalchok or in Baglung, but at least our initial studies, our initial surveys have shown that this needs to be done in at least like 30 districts, all the way from east to west. But this is just one part of the problem. Like, again, what we've also been able to see is sort of hydropower projects. In 2019, we saw the Dordi Lamjung flash floods. And similarly, again, we've also witnessed the 2015 bizarre Seti floods, a part of the hillslide avalanche and the rock slid that led to the death of, again, 72 people. Something similar to Chamoli, again, what we've recently experienced. Chamoli in particular has been able to draw a lot of attention globally, but also within scientific community, particularly on working on climate change risk. But we witnessed even more dangerous such landslides and disaster events within the Nepal Himalaya, and the lessons that we could have learned from these hills and mountains would also be equally kind of replicated in other Himalayan countries. We've spoken at length on the glacial lake outburst first. I don't want to go into detail, but this is again thanks to you, ICIMOD, for the study.
Anilji, we are slightly overboard with the time. Yeah. Okay,
so I'll try to kind of again quickly. I'll skip the glove side of things, but then quickly jump on the last slide that I want to mention is on forest fires. Again, it's mostly humans, us, to be blamed for the forest fires that we've witnessed this year. But we also need to think that, again, this is also perhaps part of it is because of climate change. We've experienced massive droughts, and that's what led to the burning of some of these forest fires. It's been unprecedented in terms of the numbers that we've been able to kind of look at, but we've not really been able to in the past, not been able to consider forest fire as disaster. It's thankfully the Disaster Risk Management Act very clearly articulates that needs to be integrated with early warning systems, but also a response mechanism. And I just wanted to end with my presentation with one slide. What we've learned is we need water to manage these forest fires. And we had not had those two ponds up in the mountains, perhaps our helicopters or even the air firefighting systems would not have been able to kind of serve that purpose of putting out the fire either in the Taplejung or in Sivapuri. This is where, again, the need to really look into water, the extremes, managing droughts, managing floods has to be considered while considering climate change issues, and particularly when we talk about sustainability and human and the vulnerable people in the mountains. So with this, I'd like to end my presentation. Over to you, Basantji. Thank you.
Thank you, Anilji. Sorry to cut short. Your presentation is very, very relevant in the context of climate change, and also providing very comprehensive overview of disaster risk reduction in the context of climate change, and also looking at the multiple kind of hazard scenario in Nepal, not to mention the kind of a brunt that we face with the forest fires and impending the air pollution and the health issues in the recent past in the valley and many parts of Nepal. Thank you very much, Mr. Pokhrel. I also see the active chat here, and I request all the panelists, maybe if there are questions, if there are, I see number of resources, I think ICIMOD colleagues are putting up in the chat. And if there are questions, and also in the program, the respective email address of ICIMOD resource person or the panelist, and also all the panelists are given. If there are any questions, I also request to use chat box at present now, and also you may want to contact them in future as well. I'm not sure with the timing. I see 12:18, Your Excellency Nona. Maybe, I don't know, shall I take just a couple of minutes before I give a floor to you in terms of not the wrapping up, but in terms of the today's context, in terms of panel's deliberation, if that is all right with Your Excellency Nona. Okay, thank you. I see a note here. And I think, thank you all panelists. I think this has been a very, very, very interesting and exciting deliberation, all the panelists. And I think there are, of course, the local level kind of action, stress on the climate action is the need of the hour, and many colleagues have shared very local level action from the Sudur Pachim to Himalika in the context of the Hindu-Kush Himalayan region. At the same time, I think there are also references in terms of emphasizing regional cooperation, the needing to deal with the climate change adaptation and the mitigation aspects needing for regional cooperation. At the same time, some of the global level of opportunities in terms of COP26 and also bringing together the mountainous countries to combat climate change. So very, very apt from different sorts of presentation. I will not go into details, and I think I would request everyone to share PowerPoint to the interested audience here. But once again, it has been a very, very good information in terms of the climate change and also taking step forward in the context of climate change adaptation, and also looking into perspective of not only in Nepal but also the regional and global perspective. So I would not go into detail in terms of my notes and summarizing many different aspects of discussion and deliberation. With this, I would like to give a floor for the closing remark to Your Excellency Nona Dotres of European Mission to Nepal. Over to you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, first of all, to the colleagues of the Embassy of Finland to Nepal and the colleagues in ECMOD for having brought together such a wonderful panel. I thought it was very, very interesting starting from the regional perspective with the bird's eye view on the issues, going into the real practical, pragmatic, grassroots level solutions and the learnings that everyone can have from each other. So for me, this was a very interesting panel, and this is exactly the kind of things that we need now, and which is really the best way to celebrate Europe Day together. Because I think we have seen that, of course, this green recovery is not only about climate change, it's also about the loss of biodiversity, it's about nature-based solutions, and it is about this very close link between being climate resilient and disaster risk reduction, as Mr. Pokhrel has also emphasized in his presentation. So I think we have also this pandemic has reminded us of the links between environmental degradation and the impact of human health. So whilst we are busy now with trying to cope with the pandemic and trying to manage the pandemic, this is really the last opportunity, I would say, to build back better together, greener, resilient, and inclusive, because all of these issues are linked. And of course, we need regional cooperation for that. I just wanted to end with highlighting the question that Dr. Joshi from the Embassy of Finland put in the chat, and which we have not covered today. And those are the climate change related conflicts. I think there is a lot of, unfortunately, of risk of conflicts in the region due to climate change, due to scarcity of water resources. And those also need to be taken into account and should push us more towards regional cooperation. So the European Union and its member states will continue to stand ready to support Nepal in its green, resilient, inclusive recovery. And we're also working hard to try to get a regional response, to support a regional response together. I wanted to leave it at that, and I really want to thank the audience and the panelists for their very insightful and thought-provoking presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency Nona, Ambassador of European Union to Nepal. And also, I think your closing remarks very aptly or excellently summarizes the kind of today's discussion. And also, thank you for touching base with some of the larger issues in terms of the conflict related to climate change and all this. So once again, thank you all the panelists, thank you all the speakers here, and thank you all of those who have been able to join with us in celebrating and marking EU Day 2021. And also thank you to our colleague from Sudhamani ji from Finland Embassy. I think we have been in quite a bit of a touch, and also current pandemic situation in terms of putting together this program. Thank you also, I think, our colleague Raiji and many other colleagues, those who have put together, I think, a lot of effort gone into in terms of organizing the online Zoom event and also making the kind of promotion of this event through the Facebook and other pages. So have a good day and have a good lunch. and good EU Celebration Day, and our congratulations to all our EU friends. Thank you all for joining us in today's lively discussion. Thank you, Your Excellency, and thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pema.
This is all the
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Pema, and other colleagues from Mr.
Thank you, Basant Shrestha ji. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was that beautiful Nepali anthem music. I think that was, very, very heartening to hear, and very lively music, Nepali anthem. Dhanyavad, everyone.
okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you.